like Singapore have more strict guidelines when it comes to social media, please get in touch with the training department and the agency staff should you need to consult those social media guidelines or ask any questions. And of course, as I said, going forward, this will be a weekly seminar. So once we get feedback from all of you and see what is on your mind during the Q&A, we can make time to cover some of these additional topics in next week's session. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Ben.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you, Ben.
And thanks for sort of setting up this wonderful context.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So I'm going to take it on this entire webinar all the way to the end. And I really thank Matt so much for, of course, setting the show. And it's always heartening to hear from a Prudential perspective. So for us to really have a fruitful session today, I'm going to sort of write on from what Matt has mentioned from the logistical perspective to the learning perspective. And I'm going to say it from 2 points of view so you get where I'm coming from. And where I come from is I really want this webinar to work for you. So I'm going to say it from my perspective first. So about 2008 or 2009, I was in India in a conference. I met a great friend. His name is Bongani. Bongani is from Nigeria, and we were having a chat about our favorite passion, which is public speaking. He told me, Ben, every time when you give a 10-minute speech to 50 people, you're not just doing a 10-minute speech. He told me, Ben, you have to think of it this way. You're giving a 10-minute speech to 50 people, and that's 500 minutes of the world's time. And if I extrapolate it to what's happening today, about 8,000 of you have signed up for this webinar. I'm effectively taking up 720,000 minutes of the world's time. And I hope that you'll see through this entire webinar from my effort, from Prudential's effort, that we designed this just for you, right? And this is really intentional, it's deliberate, and it's meant to help you through these challenging times. So that's on my part. On your part, I use a very simple rule called A, B, C. The first A I'd like you to sort of be with me is to be attentive. So the best way to really get the most out of this webinar is not to have a device where you're watching Netflix, and I've been watching Kingdom and the zombies, by the way, but this is not the best time. You should turn off and take aside all distracting devices so that you can focus with me. This webinar is about your business, it's not about my business. It's just that my business has been all about your business during such times. And I want you to realize that you've got one out of the 8,000 learning slots. The last I've learned, the slots were all out in 2 hours, and many were not able to get a learning spot in this webinar. So you're one of the lucky 8,000. Please bear in mind and have your minds with me. Take a pen, a paper, grab a caffeine. I've had my caffeine, but I'm sure that you would enjoy caffeine and learning through this period with me. After A goes to B. If you've been into fitness, there's a training system called the P90X. That's excellent for you to lose weight, but I had a creative spin and I thought of it as BB90X, right? What does BB90X stands for? It's bumps with Ben till 90 minutes. And I assure you that if you stay with me and commit with me through this 90 minutes webinar or learning session, there are not just one, not just two, but 3 learning bonuses at the end of the session. And even during the session, I want you to also commit to 2 small exercises where I'll be asking you to do a bit of reflection, a bit of self-work. And the last but not least is C. C stands for curiosity. And as I go through all the different examples, I want you to ask yourself, how can I use this in my own country? What do I have to change? Where should I need to adapt? How can I do it differently, better, and even the right way for my clients? So that context set, I'm very, very excited to give you the next 52 minutes of this right content before we go into Q&A as well as other matters. I want to start off first with this opening frame. To be honest, I haven't lived through a crisis, but I can say as far as the first crisis that happened to me was in 2008, where I started my training business. At that time, I was wondering why were no corporate clients responding to my emails. I tried to cold call, cold email. The whole world was in a fluster. Now, fast forward 12 years. Now is such times, but you'll be feeling slightly anxious. You may be caught unaware. You may be not very sure on what are the next steps. And if you're in countries where lockdown or the state of lockdown is going on indefinitely, you don't know how long is this situation is going to play out. You're slightly worried. You don't know if your customers are okay. You don't even know where your customers are. Are they stranded out of your country or in your country? Are they well? Are they ill? What kind of states are they in? And worse, moving on into the business context, they are not willing to see you. They're not willing to step out of their homes, and they're not able to do so as well. So this is the opening frame, and these are the things that are happening across our region, from the Philippines to Indonesia to Hong Kong to Malaysia, and as well as where I'm at in Jalan Besar in Singapore. We are in this condition called a DOS called orange, breaching red. And I think, even before we get there are a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of flux in our environment. And I just say that if you're feeling slightly uncertain about the upcoming weeks, you are not alone. I'm feeling that exactly. But what does this exactly mean, right? So these are the current state of your customers. They are at home. They're staying from home. They're working from home. They're working out. They're having fun with the children, and maybe doing both, having fun while working out with the children you see in this gif. But what about us as consultants with Prudential? Some of you are wondering, how does this change my business materially? How am I going to do e-sessions? How am I going to meet my clients to get signatures? How am I going to open up new policy conversations? And I want to say, as what Matt mentioned just now, that there is hope. I know I sound like a politician, but I call it my biggest challenge or strength or blind spot. I am quite an eternal optimist. And I always like to see what's the silver lining in the midst of the dark clouds. And I want to say that there are 2 points that you need to be very, very aware of. Point number 1, your customers are, yes, indeed staying home. They can't head out, but this also means that they have more time at their disposal, right? With the exception, like, for example, my wife, she's like working literally from 8 a.m. all the way to 11 p.m. But in between, I'm sure there are times, if you position your agenda well, you can reach out to them. More importantly, I would say, is the distraction point. It used to be the case if you're servicing certain clients, they'll be flying in and out, they'll be taking care of multiple responsibilities. Now they are at home. The second point, which is even better, and it bodes a lot of strength and a lot of faith for you as life insurance consultants, is that their sense of awareness is heightened. But what is this sense of awareness premise on? What is it about? 1, they are not too sure whether the jobs are secure or not. And this is the best time you could reach out to Mr. Client or Madam Client and say, how are you going through this crisis? Are your jobs okay? Is everything okay about your career? And this is a time for you to also open up a conversation in terms of their finances. Do they have emergency funds set aside? Are they okay? Are they covered, right? The second thing about health scares. In such points, anyone becomes very vulnerable. So I have a friend, in fact, a close sister to me. She's in the UK, she's about mid-30s, and she's even down with COVID-19. And for me, I thought that COVID-19 just affects people in their senior ages, and I thought, I should be fine. But when that news hit me, I could palpably feel that sense of fear and ask myself, what if I'm that unlucky someone? And the last thing is there's this huge future uncertainty, which really means we don't know how long this crisis is going to take. Is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse? We don't know. But one thing for sure is that Prudential Life Consultants, we need to have a strategy. We need to have a plan, right? If you have a strategy and plan, which I'm going to share with you in this webinar, you're going to get certain results. For example, one of my students, which I'm going to share, he and his agency managed to reach out 383 of his customers, managed to secure 83 calls, Zoom calls, to talk about policies, and even in this period, managed to have 8 policy sales and opening, if you do the right thing. But the whole equation is not as straightforward because there are 2 big problems that I have to bring out first. One is that I've been keeping my eyes on social media, and there's a lot of things that sometimes I see, and I will scratch my head and say, why are they doing that? One example, this was a post, and I don't want to wrong the person who has posted this because this is just one of the many examples I saw, right? And it reads, during this period of COVID-19, I have a lot of my friends who don't have insurance or underinsured, and I know you can't meet your agents. Don't worry. We can do policy submissions online. This is in Malaysia. If you like, contact me. I'll provide you with the best quotation. Now let that sink in for you in a bit. Now imagine if a customer seeing this on a mass social media platform like Facebook, like Instagram. On a scale of 1 to 10, how willing are you to reach out to your reach out to your agents for a quotation? The question and answer is for you to think. I've seen another variant of it is, hello, during this period, if you'd like to buy insurance, you can DM me or contact me at whatever number. And again, you see the emoji, I'm like, would that really work? So don't get me wrong, I feel, and I will address that part on social media needs to be used very wisely. But what I'm saying is that if you look and you step into the roles of your customers during this period, this is what's happening in the region. We see panic buying. We see that the top of mind is to make sure that when we are at home, we have Maggi noodles, we have fresh produce, we have poultry to cook chicken soup, like what I shared with Matt just now, right? Your customers are worried if there's masks, and hopefully there are toilet papers, and hopefully not, there are toilet paper eggs. They're also wondering, how they're going to survive this whole crisis. So anxiety, anxiousness is building up, and they're wondering how long this whole crisis is going to take. They're also working from home, and if you see, these are all the variants of working from home. Your customers may be actually sleeping at home, but I want to say if you're watching down here, Prudential Life Insurance Consultants, you shouldn't be sleeping at home. You should be making use of your best time, because you and I are self-employed, right? The moment we stop activity, our income goes down, and most importantly, you're missing out on an opportunity to serve your clients. So all I'm saying is, let's take a moment and pause. Let's ask ourselves, in such crisis, where do you think their perception about the need to get insurance is? Is it going to be very high, or is it going to be very, very low, right? My humble point of view is that them thinking about insurance, naturally, the natural instinct is not going to be very high, because they're thinking about toilet paper, food, how they're going to keep their jobs, keep the money in the next few weeks to come. But insurance can be an important agenda only if you educate them to be so. So this is my first big problem that most insurance consultants need to be aware of. Posting on social media to ask them, if you need something, reach out to me. If you need a quotation, message me. That is unlikely going to work. Only if, one, you have had a strong social media presence before this, and you have such a strong fan base, and two, you're such an appealing character. But for the most of us, I've designed this webinar for us to start on as baby steps. So the key number one thing is that customers won't be reaching out to us. Point number one is we need to be reaching out to them in a high touch and deep contact point of view and sort of fashion. The second problem is that if we realize problem number one, we try to work around problem number one, we start to say, hey, then how do I reach out to my customers effectively? Therein lies the second problem. The second problem is that this is the usual perception of life insurance agents in Singapore and in Asia. If you do it the wrong way, you send the first text and say, hey, I have a new policy that can help you and your family. Well, I think that sounds nice with good intention, but that may be slightly distasteful and a turn-off. Why? Because I think when people are in a state of crisis, stress, anxiety, they sometimes just can't cope with so many things on their plate. So you need to be tactful, you need to be professional, and you need to be effective. I've talked so much about the front context, I'm just going to spend 1 minute to share with you who the hell I am. For those of you who have met me, likely the leaders in Prudential Leaders Conference, right? You've probably seen me on stage or downstage in person. You probably have interacted with me on social media. So briefly, these are my credentials. But I just want to say that today, I come not so much from a speaker, but I come from the perspective of a coach and potentially as a fellow friend, confidant, if you like to call it. I'm supporting the number one leaders in Singapore, Malaysia, as well as Indonesia to tide and pull their agencies through this crisis. Whatever I'm going to share with you are things that have worked out firstly for me in this 12 years of self-employment. As you can see, I don't look very, very mature. I don't know if that's a good thing or a not so good thing, but every part of my journey has been fraught with challenges. And this one, I've been really, really excited because I see myself actually going through an uptick in the past 1 month. And I really believe that there are always opportunities in the crisis. Whatever I'm going to share with you is not theory. This is an example where one of my students, after applying and spreading the work and the structure out to the agency, managed to secure 15 Zoom appointments with their customers. right? So what I'm saying is I'm a specialist not at selling insurance, not at talking about insurance, but I think I know a bit about how it helps or what it takes to get your customers to say yes to you. What it takes for your customers to feel that they have gotten this awareness that you care for them and they're willing to spare 30, 45, 60 minutes to spend time with you. I think I know a bit about that because these are the results that have come. I've been able to help my students from Indonesia during this crisis to reach out to the customers to upgrade their plans in the likes of PRUDENTIal, right, and a few other Indonesian policies. This is one of my Indonesian leaders that I'm working with, and those of you who are in Indonesia, you see that emoji over there and you know who is that gentleman. And my commitment during this period is not just to do social media postings. Don't get me wrong, social media postings are important, but most importantly, we need to ask ourselves this one important question. Do our customers want to see us do more TikTok video, more funny memes, or would they appreciate us reaching out to them one by one as a human, as their family, as their support? So that's my point of view. And in 5 days of execution, this was my Malaysian student. And as you can see, these are the statistics. In just 5 days of execution, his entire agency reached out to over 340 of their customers. They set up a total of 83 Zoom calls, and Zoom is the platform that I suggest, but feel free to use otherwise. And of course, the amazing thing, at least in Malaysia, where inception of policies are made possible, there are 8 policy sales. So I must be, you are sitting down there in your own country and must be wondering, like, what is this young guy, this dude trying to do, right? And there must be some secret sauce, right? I want to tell you that this whole webinar is about this secret sauce. And it's not that secret anyway. I think for me, when I designed this structure, I just put myself in the seats of my customers and say, how do I want Ben to reach out to me in the most human and the most humane way? And I designed a 3-point structure, which is all about securing online consultation. I want to set up that this is not for so much for new prospects. It's more for your current clients and especially prospects whom you have a bit of relationship depth. What do I mean by that? Probably you've had like 1 or 2 sit-down coffee sessions. You spoke to them about on the phone. You know how many children do they have. Like for example, I know Matt is staying now in Yio Chu Kang. He has a dog. He runs 20 kilometers. Sorry, he cycles 20 kilometers. There's some ground that's been struck, right? This structure is perfect for such kind of clients, right? If you're talking about Ben, how do I do prospecting for new clients? That will come in the upcoming modules on social and social media. So there's 3 structures and 3 phases to this whole entire structure. Phase number 1 is the warm up. Phase number 2 is the open up. And phase number 3 is the setup. I'm going to go through this, and in each and every of these phases, there will be a short break for me to obviously get some hydration, but more importantly, for you to stay with me. It's important that you stay with me through this webinar because this is about your business. If you do it right, you're going to get statistics and results like this. You're going to be able to reach out to your customers during this period of crisis. And I want to assure you this. Each and every customer out there may or may not be serviced by multiple life insurance consultants. But it is up to you if you rise up to the occasion insofar that it may be fearful, insofar that you don't want to talk about insurance over Zoom, over virtual. But it can be learned, right? And if you manage to overcome that, the consultant that leads their customers through this crisis will be the consultant that's being remembered, right? Because when all the other consultants are frantic, they're busy, they're taking care of their own self, guess what? If you are the one that rises up to the seat to support them, to be their source of strength, love, and inspiration, you're going to be remembered. So we are planting seeds not just for this COVID-19, we are planting seeds for the upcoming months to come. So I'm going to jump on in, and I would say a few disclaimers first. This training is not entirely about social media training. This is training you on business continuity. And for me in Singapore, we haven't gone yet to the complete lockdown, but for many countries of students I've been working in, whether in Indonesia, in Malaysia, movement, restriction of movement is a real thing. So we need to change the language of our business, our process of business. And what that means is that instead of meeting your clients through in person at Grand Indonesia over Starbucks using your pen and paper to talk about policy details, drawing out concepts, you need to ask yourself, how does that transpire? How does that look like online? And why I don't want to touch so much on social media is now, what your clients really need is not more posts, as I mentioned. They need you. The second thing is I give an overarching structure, and I really emphasize that it's a structure, not a script. I once used to work in StarHub as a cold caller before I entered university. So as a cold caller, you have to follow the script word for word, and sometimes you do it very brainlessly. There's no way if I'm training 7 to 8 countries, I can give you a script that works out for 8 countries for over 8,000 consultants, because each and every one of you speak a different language, you type in a different manner, serve different customers. So my point to you is, don't be lazy, make this structure yours, right? You want emojis, you want to use local language, like for example in the Philippines, you can use Taglish, which is Tagalog plus English, go ahead, right? So the key thing here is take ownership, evolve. And the key thing here is the way and the mode that you're going to communicate is going to change over time. Your end goal, I would say, it depends on your local sales process. So for example, in Malaysia, they can go the whole mile and they have policy inceptions through online. I'll be very happy if you can get that, right? But for countries in Indonesia, it's half a mile. So they are able to use their one-time password to do a policy upgrade. That's the best case scenario. And then in Singapore, where you can't really do anything, right? At least in terms of the inception stage due to the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is a client of mine as well. The best thing you can do is make sure that you open up more conversations during this period, right? The key thing here is you want to be one step ahead from all your peers. And I want to say there are 3 points to this entire structure. You can do point 1, point 2 over the phone if you're comfortable, but promise me this, don't skip or change the sequence. Don't tell them what's the call about and then try to warm up. If you mix the sequence, it may not work, you may not get the results, and I cannot be responsible for that. So if you're ready, let's start off point number 1. I think the point number 1 is a very simple, but sometimes simple things get overlooked. The first point during a crisis is not to sell anything, right? The first point during a crisis is to really reach out in a leaderless manner, in a manner that shows that you really care. So insofar as you can do, try to really care for your customers and their well-being, right? Be a source of concern and support for them. And I hate to be giving a script or a structure. If you need to, this is like the bare basics, which is, hello, Matt, how are you? I hope your family and yourself are coping well during this period. I'm going to talk to you later about can you do this over a call? Yes, but there are certain challenges with doing a call at this period, which I'm going to address. In this period, you're going to genuinely reach out to your clients, and what you're going to do is you're going to call back certain details. What do I mean by callback? The month now is in March. Maybe last time you met was in December. You're going to ask them, say, hey, I still recall when we discussed in December, you're thinking of sending your daughter to piano classes, right? How is that coming along? Hey, instead of like now we can't go for piano physical classes, I found a webinar or a learning series on YouTube that teaches people how to play musical instruments, and I thought it may be of interest to you. Oh, by the way, how's your family like? I recall that your parents are kind of aging as well. How is that coming along, right? One small little tip, which I'll share, is that I usually love to use voice memos because voice memos allows for you to convey your warmth. Sometimes typing text, there's always that conception or that thought, which is this person copy and pasting to everyone, right? And if you have that thought, your customers are going to have that thought as well. So my suggestion, use a voice memo to really convey that warmth because, we all sound differently. And if you put a bit of warmth in your voice and you say hello, especially with that name, we all know being salespeople, our names are the best sounding nouns or words to each and every one of ourselves. I'm going to segue into a short exercise later, so be prepared with your pen and paper. So I want to say that in this period, there are many ways for you to warm up with your clients. There's not just one way, okay? So the first way, especially for your top 10 or top 15 clients, if you can, try to call. But I would say the challenge with calling is that you never know what is a good time. You may call them while they are sort of bathing their dogs. You may call them while they are cooking. You may call them while they are having a huge argument with the wife, right? Research has shown that even in this period, when husbands and wives are at home, right, the intensity and the arguments actually start to rise, right? Because this is the first time ever in the history they're seeing so much of their couples and the partners, right? So what if you call them in the middle of argument? So my suggestion is try to call maybe only selected few, and you want to be very mindful about that. Alternative is you could do a voice memo. The second thing, check on their social media postings. Check out what have they been posting. If they're posting a lot of gloomy stuff, about distress stuff, this is your perfect opening. If they're happy, write on their happiness and, hey, I really love your positivity. I love what you've been doing, trying to rally people to donate for the frontline workers, stuff like that. The third thing I want to say is a care package, and this is where I'm going to use a prop. A couple of weeks back, before the crisis mode set up, I was doing a catch-up lunch or a brunch with a leader in Singapore. I relate to her as almost a sister, and her name is Tracy. And the first thing she sort of presented to me when we met is, Ben, this is for you, right? And as you can see, this is a very, very common-looking box. But what's in the box is a care package, right? And I'm going to sort of like let you take a look. So in the care package, there's one, a hand sanitizer. The second thing is a vitamin C powder. And last but not least, we being Chinese, we always believe that there's always a herb for every condition, right? So as you can see, this is like what a standard care package is. But the thing is, can we do it even better? And that's where social media comes in. So one of the inspiration I got in China is that China businesses are amazing at one, creating wonderful, out-of-the-world wow experiences, and two, having their customers share your work on social media. Why are those two components important? One, it has to be a wow experience because, again, if you're going to give me like a stack of masks, I'll say, oh, all right, thank you. I'm going to put it aside, right? It's a nice gesture, but it's not a very memorable gesture. So you need to ask yourself, how can I create a wow gesture out of that? The second thing is, how do I create something that must be shared, needs to be shared? So one of the things I'm thinking and suggesting to you, if your resources, your local resources avail, is to have a little QR code next to your box. And what this QR code does is that when you scan using on the QR code, that may pop out like a little video. This video could be a sort of a song, and I know Filipinos love to sing. So what's stopping you from expressing your creativity in this crisis, right? It could be a team endeavor where you're doing a message, right? And this flows to point number 4, where I believe that these are such times whereby you don't think linearly. If you're thinking linearly, you're just doing what everyone is doing. So I'm the kind of person where everyone zigs, I will zag. If everyone is just doing care package, I'll do care package and more. And if you see care package with a QR code leading to a YouTube video, chances are, what would that do when the customers have a wow experience? They'll say, wow, my agent not just gave me a care package, but he did a song, a dance, a dedication to me. I'm going to share this on my IG story. And what you're trying to do is just basically, again, reaching out to your current prospects, current clients, and using them as a seed base for social media, right? The fifth thing I would say, if your local postal services are still working, write a handwritten card, mail it to them. O is still gold, right? Point number 6, share behind the scenes, right? Because people are always curious, like, what are you guys doing? Are you consultants, like hopping on Zoom? What are you doing, right? So you can do a behind the scenes of your daily life, talk about your rituals, your lessons, your insights. Point number 7 was actually done by my consultant. Her name is Jesslyn. She gifted me an electronic food delivery card, Grab Food, which allows me to buy some food because, you know, all of us are staying at home and we don't want to cook all the time. Point number 8, electronic content. There are tons of content these days, right? You can send them an educational article, something about current affairs, financial planning checklist, a motivation video, humorous content. The possibilities are endless, right? Point number 9, I like this because it allows you to sort of get them together, right? So while you cannot be together physically, ask yourself, how can you be together electronically, virtually? Like how I'm with you, with 8,000 of you. You can join them and invite them for an online webinar. Better still, what I'm going to cover is how agencies can organize webinars for your customers, and this could be a group learning experience. Can you have a learning session together? Can you have a workout session together with the YouTube P90X or HIT? Right? Can you sing along? Can you dance along? Can you game along? Right? So think of along and think of it along in a virtual manner. And the amazing thing is you can do so many things in this crisis. I would say back to the first point is that they have a lot more time at their disposal. And they are willing to sort of give you a bit more time to hear you, to create that kind of meaningful relationships. And last but not least, you may just want to provide them with a local news update. And that's what my consultant, Jesslyn, does. I'm on her WhatsApp broadcast list. Every time there's a new update, she's the first one that dishes out for me. So now is the time for us to take a quick break. I want you to take 30 seconds on your own, and I'd like you to, out of this list of 10, and by all means, if you have more creative methods, if you have better methods, please go ahead and do. But I still stick to the first point, which is the first point and first point of contact during crisis is not to sell them anything. Genuinely warm up, show that you care, right? So if you like to, take 30 seconds to choose what are your 1 to 2 top or chosen ways that you like to warm up with your warm up with your current clients during this point of time. If you have any that's out of the list, go ahead. So this is time for you to take a pen, paper, or at least your mobile phone. 30 seconds right now to list down what are your top 1 to 2 ways. Consultants, please share that with your agency leaders. Agency leaders, if you know your consultants are on this webinar, hold them onto it because, learning can be a fun learning session, but if no action is taken, it's just a learning webinar. Right? 30 seconds starting right now. We'll take about 20 more seconds. And as you go through the list, you can feel free to do more, but a few considerations maybe, what works for your clients, right? Are your clients the touchy-feely kind? Are they even on social media, right? So if you're working with a Gen X or baby boomer client, as much as you create a wow and shareable experience, but if they're not on social, maybe that's not the best thing to do. Maybe like phone calls, right? So think of your clients, their preferences, what do they like? It has to be you as well, right? So I can't ask you to sing and dance along if you're like me. I'm a public speaker, but I'm not a public singer. All right, we'll take about final 10 more seconds. Again, you're doing this for your business. It's your business, it's not mine. But it's just that this time I've risen up to the occasion to make sure that I help you through this moment. And let's time in 5 seconds. And time is up. So can I have your attention back to the screen again? Now that you've done step number 1 well, which is the phase number 1 of warming up, chances are your customers will feel that you really care. And chances are they'll be having a bit more listening. It's not as sudden to talk about financial planning, right? So you've gained their listening, respect, their love, their trust. And it also allows you to pace up your communications. Why? Because if their family members are sick, if their family members are worried, if their family members are stranded out of their local cities, it allows you to be very tactful to say, let me reach out to you in 1 week's time, right? But suppose if the first point of contact is to sell them something and say, hey, would you like to do a Zoom call now to review your policy? Can you imagine how that will really turn your people off? They may even cancel your policies altogether, right? Which brings me to the second phase, right? Should you immediately talk about a policy or not? My point of view is that what I've learned, at least in a crisis, is that permission-based selling is the best thing to do. What do I mean by permission-based selling? Permission-based selling is really treating the person as a human and not as a sales target. So you want to check in with your prospect. Sorry, again, I shouldn't say prospect. You want to check in with your current client or prospects with high relational base, whether it is okay for you to share more. And one thing you can do is to open up with a test opener, right? Open up with a test opener. What is a test opener? Is that in a message or in a call, whichever you prefer, but I am always favoring messages because it can scale. Scale meaning you can do a lot more outreach at one time, is that you're going to share enough details for your clients to get interested for a planning conversation or a review conversation. You are going to allow your clients to say yes or no to you because you don't want to hard sell, right? And this is permission-based. It's step by step. It's a cha-cha dance, right? You let them take the lead. If they say yes, you move forward, right? If they say no, at least you still have a recourse. So in the best case, yes, you go to phase number 3. If they say no, then you could say, Mr. So-and-so or Matt, I've always thought that you'll be very, very concerned about your health. You've been always working out. Is there any reason why you wouldn't be keen, right? So don't just take no for an answer as well. Ask them why. And sometimes when you have the courage, and this is what the values that Matt has mentioned, courage, if the courage to ask them, you stand from the space of wanting to help them, they will get it, right? So if you ask them why, and they say, maybe this is the best time because I'm working OT this 3 days, 4 days, they say, okay, I perfectly understand. How about we do this conversation next week, right? So at least giving them a yes and no versus outrightly selling the whole agenda gives them the chance to respond. And I just want to say this is a sample, again, a structure, which reads, Matt, I'm glad you're keeping well, and you know I've been always supporting entrepreneurs like you, professionals like you, expats like you, mothers like you, fathers like you. This period, give a hook. What is a hook? A hook is basically a short spiel that you're going to share with your customers as well as your clients, something enough about either an upcoming policy or a value that you're going to offer them maybe through your Zoom call that they may be interested. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that. It's either about your policy or that value they're going to get over the Zoom call, and you just want them to get curious. You give them enough details to be interested, but not enough details to know the full picture. And you say, would you like to know more? And I've been trained as a copywriter, so I would always love to use PS. I only share this with select clients, especially those who really care about families and loved ones. And if you notice, if you receive that, there's two sort of emotions that I'm trying to engineer. One, I want them to feel that, I don't send this to everyone. I only send this to select clients, and I'm one of the selected clients of Ben. Second, I'm one of the selected clients, or on top of that, I'm one that really cares about your family and loved ones. So it's a bit about, assuming what they should be, who they should be. As a quick example, I'm going to share with you my student from Eugene. That is his script, but he has very kindly given permission for all of us to hear and learn. But I already allude to the first point. Don't be lazy. Make the structure yours, right? So this is how it looks like for his, right? I've always been supporting business owners like you. And this period, Prudential Malaysia has announced a special coverage of 5,000 ringgit to all our policyholders during this period. You can also enhance your 36 CI to 160 CI at how much? Only 8 ringgit a day. Will you like to know more? And then the PS statement. Right? So what I'm trying to do is basically give a very short message as a test opener. If you've been in sales for a very long time, this is what we call as a test close. But instead of closing now, you're opening a conversation. So what you want them to do is that you want to give them enough details to say, okay, what's next? Am I going to step into a big black hole, or am I going to follow my consultant to heaven, paradise, or a very, very promised land, right? A happy promised land. So that's the whole intent. And this script, this version, as I show you, I know there are a lot of details. I promise you in bonus gift number 3, if you stay on with me all the way to the end, and we are pretty much halfway there, bonus gift number 3 will allow you to really have a way to structure this as a handout, as a note. So now the same thing. It's a bit backtracking, but again, assume that you have done your brainstorming for what's warming up. Now I'd like you to really make and put everything together, right? So I'd like you to spend 30 seconds again. Write down what are your top 3 or 5 client names. I don't need their jobs, their occupation, their age. I just want you to write down their names because I want you to hold accountable. I want to hold you accountable to this learning because next week when we hop onto a new session, if you're not catching up with me, if you haven't done the homework for this session, you're not going to benefit from next session, right? But we're going to talk about social media, and if you haven't done the phase 1, which is changing your way of business, changing the mode of business, and hopping on calls. Can you imagine this scenario, right? You skip number 1, you don't know how to run a Zoom call, you go to social media, you have a new prospect, he or she reaches out to you through Instagram, Facebook, or otherwise, and say, hey, how can I know more? At that point in time, because you did not do your work, you're uncomfortable doing calls virtually. Would you want to reach a new prospect, or do you think a current client will be more willing to see you fumble through the initial stages? My guess is that current clients, because they know you, are willing to see you make some small mistakes. But again, don't make the jarring mistakes, which I'll go through in the do's and don'ts later. So now let's take about 30 seconds. I'd like you to write down your top 3 to 5 client names that you'll reach out by this Sunday, only to the warm-up stage. If you can ascend, progress further, I'm very, very happy for you. 30 seconds starting now. So be very intentional in exercise. This is your business. The earlier, the more swift you reach out to in a way that's personal, meaningful, and wanted and desired by them, you're going to be the consultant that's being remembered through this crisis. Let's take about 15 more seconds. And I forgot to mention that if you'd like to tag me on your IG stories, please do as well. We are not so much about creating FOMO, but we want to sort of like let people know that if they missed out on this session, what have you learned, right? So you want to see this message to help your agencies as well, right? So during this whole course of this webinar, take a photo, but please try to take a more glamorous photo, like hopefully not my mouth is half open kind of thing. Final 5 seconds. We've come to the phase 2 of 3. We're going to sort of like wrap up with this. I'm going to share with you some more amazing learning in the next few minutes to come. Now assume that you have done well and having your attention back to the screen again. Now assume you've done the warm-up phase really well. People have warmed up to you. They had fun with you. They sung along. They danced along. They know that you care. They know that you asked them about their family, their moms, their dad, stuff like that. They feel that you are human. Step number 2, which is the open up. You've opened them up and they say, hey, this is kind of interesting. There's a COVID virus special coverage, 5,000 ringgit. You can up your CI and you only need to spend 8 ringgits a day, right? Notice this is all making sure that your communications is succinct, it's short, it's meant to hook people, right? You are not highly suggested not to. Just be lazy and put a PDF of your product brochure. You put a product brochure, they have to spend a lot of time to read through. They can't decide. And when you can't decide, they're going to take time to decide. And if they can't decide, they'll tell you, I need more time to think about it. And that's where a lot of virtual communications die out. So you want to get it short, succinct. Give the details in the third phase. Give full picture in the third phase. Give them value in the third phase, right? So if I can give you any as a recommendation, phase number 1, be human, right? Phase number 2, be respectful. Draw the boundaries and let them walk through the boundaries. Let them be the first to say yes. And the last phase, I would say, is the setup. I say the setup is one of the most meaningful and most life-changing, career-changing move, if you would, and follow me, is that what we're trying to do is get them to hop on an online consult call or online appointment, right? If you watched Sanjay and Sanjay Tolani's latest video, he talked about online appointments as well as offline appointments. Sanjay's belief is that online and offline appointments are almost the same, barring a few points. I generally agree with him, but I think there is some challenges in terms of having them go online as an appointment in the first place. So that's why I have a structure, because a structure allows me to customize. I have a big, broad base, but if you think it's not enough, you can make it more detailed. If you think it's too much for your customers, again, don't be lazy, do it, cut it, make it softer, lesser, more to the point, right? You can even do it any old way you want. But the key thing here is that in the last phase about setting up is about positioning. But before positioning, I had a conversation with one of my good friends. Her name is Joyce Chan in Singapore. And she's been very, very successful as doing online consults, online appointments in this space. But she told me, Ben, one of the big things is a lot of consultants out there are fearful. And I want to tell you, it's fearful for sure, right? Running this entire learning session, 8,000 people, I'm speaking to 3-4 huge cameras. I can't see you. I can't feel you. I don't know if you're talking to your dog or you're looking at me right now, right? And I want you to know that whatever you're feeling, I'm also feeling, and feeling 8,000 times more. I'm as human as you are, right? But the key thing here is, these times cause us to be different as well. And I know from Joy's perspective and her sharing is that she spoke to a lot of consultants, and these are the common pain points or concerns, which is, how do I build rapport over a web conference? You know, I love to be in their homes. I can feel them. I can touch them. I can see their families. And sometimes they feel that it's very difficult to have a personal touch or even that wow factor, because you can draw, you can tell a story, you know, whatever you usually do to get your sale or the consult. And how do I do presentations? Because most of us agents still use our pen and paper. I want to tell you a little story. This was a consultant of mine. If you read Chinese, you can understand it, but I'll go into it. Her name is H. And H, if you're watching this, I want to let you know that I'm very proud of you. She came to me because her agency had a lot of millennials and boys who seemed to be very comfortable with Zoom. She texted me and said, you know, she doesn't really know how to use Zoom and she's fearful. She said, 可以吗? And what it means is, can I really do it, right? So the first time she approached me and talked about this agenda was a Friday or Saturday. And the next message that she sent me, which is what you see on the screen, was on a Sunday. From a state of, Ben, how do I use Zoom, to one case closed using Zoom in 2 days. And most importantly, if you look at the last part, she started to say, I can share my presentations, I can share my documents. I just want to say that technology is not an enabler, right? Technology is a real enabler. The point that now I'm doing, speaking to you 8,000, is an enabler for me, because had I been able to fly, can you imagine how many trips I've been flying to Hong Kong, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, just to do this set? The very fact that technologies allows me to speak to you in the comfort of your pajamas, hopefully, I don't know, or if you're drinking coffee, is an enabler. And likewise, the Zoom platform has its benefits, right? So if your first point of view is fear, is concern, is distress, set aside and ask yourself, what can I do over Zoom that I cannot maybe do over in physical point of view, right? So the whole point in terms of the setup phase, I know it can be very lengthy, but first advice again, don't be lazy. Second, feel free to customize to your local context, right? You're going to say, thank you, so and so. And first of all, this plan, if you're going to talk about plan, like in Malaysia, we talk about the TMCC. In Singapore, we talk about the PTP, the Pro Triple Protect. In Indonesia, you're going to talk about select policies like Pro Cinta. If you want to be policy focused, go ahead. If not, you keep it light touch. Like this conversation is not for everyone. It's again, I'm trying to reinforce that people need to plan ahead, people need to be responsible. So this is a bit like, assuming that they want to be and they need to be, right? And what you're going to do is I'm going to do it through this 45 minutes online call via Zoom. And in this call, you have benefit 1, benefit 2, benefit 3. And most importantly, at the end of the call, you'll find out clearly what the gaps, how it affects you, and what you need to do. And if you look at this script, you'll say, Ben, it's kind of lengthy, isn't it? Again, I usually work with B2B clients and their time is very, very precious, right? So one thing I realized is the higher income, the people with higher status, they value time a lot more. So they want to know that, if they're taking out 45 minutes from time from their children, from time from their families, from time from their work, especially again during such challenging times, they want to know the value. So I always err on the side of caution. I want to give them more. And then, if they are really chill and relaxed with me, you can cut it down necessarily. So I always come from the space of, what will work best for the most and the average people, right? So again, this one is from Eugene, from Malaysia. How I do it is through a 45 minutes online call. And in this call, you have benefit 1, benefit 2, and benefit 3, right? So benefit 1, 160 types of illness, the top 3 types of illness that leads to highest fatality rate in Malaysia, right? This is a bit of localization because, Malaysians obviously want to know what kills people in Malaysia. Malaysians do not want to know so much about Singaporean affairs, maybe with the exception of politics, right? Second thing, they want to know, like, for example, different payouts. And you want to sort of make sure that, again, it's short, succinct, just enough. Do not give so much details. My point of view, don't be lazy to put a product brochure because if they're looking at product brochure, more questions will come up in their head. You want to hop on a call, consult them, have them talk to you, right? When they see you, and again, this is why I recommend Zoom versus WhatsApp call. WhatsApp call, you're hearing the voice, right? But Zoom, you're looking at them, right? So they're not like trying to mow the grass, they're not trying to cook and talking to you. Having that visual interface is powerful because you're going to look at them and you can feel whether they are with you. You can feel whether they are distressed, they're upset, they're worried, whatsoever, right? And the last point, this is again a point that's being engineered by Eugene. Towards the end of this webinar, I'll give you a PDF that summarizes this. So if there's a lot of notes, don't worry, you are being taken care of, right? So this is the exact first part of the structure. The second part of the structure is what I'm going to do in terms of cementing. Cementing is making it stronger, making the commitment to say one more. And if you do the cementing right, you'll get like what my students have been getting, 83 Zoom calls in just 5 days, 8 policy sales in just 5 days, right? And I like to say it's not just because of my script, but it's about them also evolving, customizing. So there are a few points that I will mention, like during this period, I also want time for my family. So you're going to create a bit of scarcity and say, I'll only be doing about 3 to 5 of such calls. This is not you saying I'm a Prudential call center. If you need help, if you want to speak with me, I'm 24/7, I can grab a coffee, okay? You are not supposed to position yourself so lowly. You want to let them know that in this time, you are fearful, that you also have your own gender. Your family, your children are also very young. But because I care enough for you, and that's why I want to set aside time. And I can't do it like, in a free flow fashion. I can only do about 3 to 5 calls a day, right? And when you position it like that, people know that your time is precious as well, right? So this is what I share to a lot of consultants and even sales professionals is don't cheapen yourself, right? You are not selling. You're consulting them. You're telling them what's important. You're telling them if they don't do X and Y and Z and touch wood if COVID-19 hits them, if their job is lost, if their income and livelihood are being affected, who's going to get hit? It's about you, right? So you have to position yourself from a space of authority, even a moral authority, to say that you're doing this because you care, right? If you miss out on this segment or this step, people may think that, okay, you're just trying to sell me something, right? So again, you may change how you phrase it, but know what's the intent, know what's the why behind this, right? And I reach out to you because I know you're someone who cares for your family and loved ones. Again, a repetition. And this is a classical sales strategy. Don't give them an option, rather give them an assume option. Assume that they didn't want to get on a call and say, do you want to hop on this call on a Monday, 10 a.m., or do you want to hop on the call on a Wednesday, 2 p.m., right? Again, what times work? It really matches and depends on your customers as well as yourself. So by now, you've gone through the 3 phases again, and this whole content today is not so much on social media, but social media will come in the upcoming modules. And I hope you've been getting enough value, been taking down enough notes, because this session is really designed to help you. And I told you that this statistics that I've gotten, the data I've gotten is either from this week, yesterday, or these are daily reports that I get my students to share with me in terms of what works as early, as fresh as right now. During this phase, I would say there's also 2 things, especially during the consult calls moment, that agency leaders and managers can do. And if you're AL, if you're AM, or unit manager, I want you to realize that your job is not just to chase people on calls, right? Especially your junior consultants may be also fearful. They may not be fearful about technology, but they may be fearful about screwing up a call, right? They may be fearful about not knowing how to say. They may not be comfortable about introducing Prudential. They may not be able to open up and do a needs analysis and fact-finding, right? So this is the important acronym for you, a JFW. Unit managers, agency leaders, agency managers. The beauty of such times is that you can do JFW, which stands for Joint Field Work. It's the same thing, right? Joint field work is you accompany a consultant to Starbucks and you sit alongside, you do introduction, they take over, they go deep with the client, and then maybe you do the closer. On the same fashion, unit managers, agency leaders, you can do JFWs with your consultants as well. And I want to give you one quick tip as a pro tip. Before the start of the session, and this may not work for all customers, ask them, Mr. Client, Madam Client, is it okay if I record this session because this is Zoom? And if I record this for your reference, but also for me to help my consultant to be a better one, so he can serve more professionals like you. I'm going to say that one more time. Mr. or Madam Prospect, before I start the call, as I'm using Zoom, and this is an available function, can I record this call so that this serves as a reference for you in the future weeks, and this serves as a reference for me to help my consultant be a better consultant to help more people like you. Right? You can do the variants of this, but what this means is that you need to ask for permission explicitly, right? There are times whereby data privacy, it's a huge, huge concern, and if you record calls without people knowing, you may be liable legally, and this is the last thing I want you to get into trouble, right? So ask for permission. And with that call, you can even do like a coaching with your consultant as well to see what works, what can be improved. And I hope you can see that, hey, I didn't see that, because when I told them that a lot of leaders that you can do JFW online, they were surprised, right? So sometimes you being so entrenched in your business, you do not see the possibilities. But for me, I'm a third party, I'm an outsider, I'm always working with leaders. That's where I see it. We're going to pan into Q&A in about 3 to 4 minutes time. So this is where I'd like you to, again, start preparing what questions that you may want to ask. For the consultants, I actually have 2 words for you. One word on the screen right now. At the end of every call, and I want you to ask yourself, has this been a good call? If there's been a good call, your customer is very open to you to say, okay, I'm open to do a policy upgrade. I am open to sort of like incepting a new policy. Or even in Singapore, I learned something new and I'm willing to, when the crisis is over, or I'm willing to hop on the next call for solutions. If your client is very happy, always strike while the iron is hot. Take out your phone if you want to, or if there's already a screen record. Ask Madam or Mr. Client, Mr. Client, Madam Client, is it okay for you to share with me what you've gotten out from this process, what you've learned from me through this process over the Zoom call? What you're trying to do is you're documenting. Documenting means just keeping a log of what you already are doing. With this video, you're going to save it as Client 1, Client 2, Client 3, Client 4, Client 5. And what this does is that when you go to the next few prospects, and even when you're doing co-prospecting, right, co-prospects will be very, very dubious. They were saying like, are you trying to sell me through this call? But when they hear real people, real faces saying, I love this call so much, Ben. I was feeling so stressful, but you reached out to me. In this call, I learned so much about my gaps, and I'm so thankful that you really spent time with me. I learned that I need to do A, B, C, right? Having someone else say that you're good is always better than having yourself say that you're really good, right? And this is all the principle of social proof. And second, if a call goes well, ask for a referral. And again, the same game happens. If you ask for a referral offline, it's going to be the same way as you ask online. Those to summarize before I go into the Q&A segment, in the warm-up phase, be human. Show that you really care, right? Don't tell them anything. Don't talk about your prudential policies. Don't talk to them about coverage. Don't even talk to them about any discounts, any premium waivers, stuff like that, okay? Only it serves to help you warm up with them. You can do 1 to 10 or other methods, whichever works for you. The key thing, show that you truly care. In the second phase, be respectful, right? You want to open up a possibility. You want to open up a conversation. You want to let them have the space to decide. You want to let them be human to say, yes, I'm open, but no, this is not the best time. Then you reschedule. You ask them, why is it not a good time? When would be a better time? But at least you give them a permission to say yes and no. And this is really the tenets of permission-based selling, right? This is not times for hard selling, push-based selling, but this is really pull-based selling. Right? And pull-based selling is that you're going to give something of value and you want them to walk nearer to you instead of push and push and push, right? You're not giving birth to a child for goodness sake, right? So you want to be really, really gentle and be mindful. In such times, it's better to be more careful than not careful. The last phase in the setup, right? I will not be touching so much about what happens during the call. There are a lot more coaches, trainers like Sanjay. Sanjay uses a lot of concept presentations. Pick up his book, purchase his products. He will be the best person because he's an agent. I don't sell insurance, I sell education, right? He will be able to guide you on how to best talk about concepts, right? How do you position your call and give most value? But I feel what will be a great lesson is that during this call, you're supposed to be very, very giving. You're supposed to give more value. You're supposed to let them know you still care for them. And you're going to let them know what are the gaps, right? Consult first. Point out the gaps first. Let them know your options first. You want to let them know that this 45 minutes is almost an immense value that they cannot turn away. And if you're doing all this right, I assure you that you very comfortably ascend to the next stage, right? And so now is the time. And as a quick time check, we are about 20 minutes before the end of the seminar. And I'm going to take my iPad right now to see if you have any questions. And during this segment, I will not be able to answer all the questions quite obviously because on the constraint of time. But I'll try my best to answer a few pertinent ones, right? Okay, so I'll handpick a few, which is point number 1, how do you do virtual presentations? At the end of the seminar, I'll be sharing with you. Can I just check with the team, have I showed the question to our production team at MCI? Have I showed the question? Are they seeing the question right now? I have to click answer live, right? I just clicked answer live, by the way, and I said the question was, how do I run virtual presentations? I answered the easiest question first. I will have a platform for you to continue learning with me. It's in the 3 boxes that's awaiting. My PA and my staff will put on a lot of learning videos on how to set up a Zoom call, right? What are the technical setup? What's the apps that you need to install? In fact, if you use the Zoom app, in fact, you don't have to use Zoom, right? There's Google Suites. Right? There are other options like Skype, there's WebEx, there's Microsoft Teams, right? The key thing is use something that you're comfortable with and something that's easy for your prospects, right? Second question that I'll take a look at. Hi Ben, I have new agents who don't have existing clients. What is your suggestion on how I can help them initiate new sales for this new agent, right? New agents, new sales, I would say, again, don't lose hope. For the new agents, if you're new into the business, 0 to 2 years, right? I would say the most comfortable market is still your natural market, okay? So my suggestion is, even if you're new, right, try approaching your natural market first. So if it's me, at least lock down what are top 10 to 15 friends, colleagues, former colleagues, relatives, acquaintances who have a reasonable relationship and understanding about your personality. They know who you are. They know that you wouldn't hard sell, right? So you don't want to reach out to your primary school long lost friend that you haven't spoken to for 16 years. You want to go to your usual friends first. at least, get comfortable. You may or may not get a policy upgrade or a policy movement. At least you force yourself through this phase to hop on an online conversation. My first phase in helping you is that you need to be comfortable with technology. You need to be comfortable talking about your policy with the Zoom, Microsoft Suites, Google Suites, Microsoft Teams, whatever the platforms that covers for you, right? You need to be comfortable using that first. And if that happens, at least you build up your experience, your confidence. The upcoming modules to this person, Anton, who asked me that question, we're also going to share on agency and agency leader level. What can you do as a watering hole or more opportunities for your new agent to invite new prospects? That will come in module 2 and 3. But this session is really for us to start small, start fast, and start with the key clients that are supporting us first, right? So I hope that answers your question. Interesting question from Farah Hatono. How do I keep customers paying premiums in this situation? I think there are many answers the way to this, but I think one thing is if they are even having problems paying premiums, you should more importantly reach out to them. That's one, about phase 1, warming up, right? So this is the time to touch base with your current clients. If their financial situation is not that good, obviously don't try to sell to them. But again, I want you to at least start to warm up the relationships, because again, maybe sometimes, it's just this periodic kind of like a situation. For example, in Singapore, the government knows that a lot of like companies and freelancers are having a rough time, right? So there are some moments whereby the government are also reaching out to them, giving them support packages, right? So I think if you're concerned if it's about their premiums lapsing, it's a valid one. But again, try not to sell them, support them first, and maybe in the process ask them, hey, can I share with you a call, do a 45 minutes call review first. Doesn't matter if you buy from me anything or not. It doesn't matter if you policy up or not. But hey, if you got them value, would it be a chance that you can refer me someone that I can help out, reach out to during this period and crisis? I'm going to answer the next question from Tony. I have 123 questions, which I cannot go through totally everyone. Good day, Ben. I'm Tony from Malaysia. I would like to try out a workout exercise on web to interact with my clients and friends. What is the app that you would recommend? Thank you. To do a workout group exercise, that's a technology question. You can do it via, if you want every to appear on the screen, you can try Zoom. But the challenge for Zoom is that Zoom, as long as it's a 3-person's party, is considered as a group, right? So if you have 3 person or more, considered as a party. The free version only allows you to use up to 40 minutes, 40, right? So if you are really, really stingy, you want to do a light exercise and you don't exercise for 4 hours, every 40 minutes, cut it off, reconnect, cut it off, reconnect, right? But there are other options like I believe Google Suites as well. Google Suites allows you to have a lot more time, right? But the key thing here, don't think so much about the platform first. The platform is the easy one, right? Think about the activity. Ask your prospects or your current clients, what would they love to do with you? The key thing here is if you can warm up, that's an golden opportunity that is so much, much better than a lot of thousands of consultants out there. They are just posting TikTok videos, doing funny memes, right? The thing about social media is that social media is not targeted, at least not all the time, right? So if you cannot see who is seeing your comments, you don't know who to reach out. So that's why I always say, reach out to your current client base first. They are your natural champions. If you're not starting from them, you go outwards. Isn't that like ironic? Like you're not taking care of your own customers, you're finding new customers. And to me, I think from a client's point of view, it can be very disappointing. And I am a very happy client of Prudential as well. I have 4 servicing agents, by the way. And that's how much I love Prudential products, even you guys may be slightly expensive, so to speak, right? I'm going to take maybe one last question. Okay, a great question. What is the acceptable gap between stage 1, warming up, to stage 2, to open up for a conversation and to propose a Zoom meeting? This is a question that I have been often asked. The answer is that there's no one answer, right? I understand your concern, right? How do I know people have warmed up, right? So there are many variants to it. One way to look at it is from your awareness of your client. Is your client the kind of get things done, chop to the point, structured, or your client needs a bit of serenading, a bit of warming up, a bit of control? You need to send them a few dog videos, cat videos, cooking recipes, right? So there isn't really a science to it. A science means it's precise. It's more art, right? The second thing would be sometimes pick up a call after you do the texting and say, hey, no, I just thought of sharing with you something, pick up a call, right? So when you pick up the call, you start to hear from them if they're open and willing to hear more, right? If you somehow sense that they're a bit more like, still a bit cold to you, pace it, take it slower, right? So I've seen my students doing from phase number 1 to phase number 2 in just one day, in just few hours, but sometimes prospects do not reply. Clients do not reply so fast as well. So you may be 2 to 3 days. But my suggestion is if your prospect or client does not reply to you within 24 to 48 hours, try to follow up with them. All right. So to the next about 188 of you who have asked me questions, I'd love to answer them all, but obviously I will bust the time. So I will have to go back to my slides, and to the production team, can I have my slide, please? As I promised you, if you have stayed with me the full mile, I have 3 bonuses for you. And I mean bonuses not just as like empty ebooks, videos, and more stuff for you to just like digest, right? I really, really want to support you. And I want to share with you what is my intent, right? So production team, can I have a slide, right? So while they're working up, at this point, again, as a quick heads up, consultants, please share with your agency leaders what you've learned. And agency leaders, please check in with your consultants. What are their top 3 to 5 names, as well as what are their 1 to 2 ways to warm up the clients, right? Can we go to a few slides? Yes, the Q&A slide. Okay, this is bonus number 1, and as you can see, I started a group called Prudential, #COVID-19 Crisis Warriors. I call this Warriors because when I watched that movie, can't recall, Spartans, right? I can't recall the exact movie title. It's all about warriors rising up to this new occasion. And for me, I feel that this crisis actually brought out a lot of energy of me, right? If you've been following me for the past 2-3 years, I was very low-key for the past 2 years. But this crisis brought out the whole anger, energy, and that sort of that spurt of energy in me. So I want you to join this group as a bonus number 1, because this is where I'm going to nurture and put in more value for you. Every week, I cannot commit right now, but if I can, I'll try to have for example, Zoom calls with select students, and I'll put it there so that you can learn from other people's journey, right? And as you join this group, I want you to take note that please do not circulate this group to your friends from Allianz, AIA, GE, Manulife, because I am dedicated. I have signed a contract with Prudential, and I only serve Prudential consultants. So make it a treat, be selfish for once, at least to your peers, to yourself. You can join the group with the URL, or you can take a phone and scan it. But I want to let you know that we're going to be handling thousands of inflow at one time. So if we take a bit of time to approve, please give us till this weekend, or even latest till early next week. In this group, there'll be a lot of learning resources, videos. I'll try to share maybe a daily tip, or even every other day, a tip for you to get faster ahead during this crisis. So if you learn and gotten value through this webinar, which I hope you have, right, there's a lot more that is instilled in my back. My students call me a mini Doraemon because I'm able to pluck out a lot of ideas that seems to work, but again, hear it from them. You want to hear it from him as well. His name is Eugene. He is my student, which I started off in this COVID-19 crisis. And I said, hey, who will be a best action taker who will trust me and implement fast, right? So I reached out to Eugene just last Friday, and he said, Ben, I'm willing to invest faith in you. And this is the thing, right? I know you may not trust me virtually, even right now, and some of the strategies you have to try it first, right? But for those students who have trusted me and invested their faith in me, this is what they've got. Sent out 358 messages, 83 Zoom meetings scheduled in 5 days, Monday to Friday, or even if you consider Sunday to Friday, that's about 5-6 days, 8 cases closed, right? So of course, I emphasize, I gave the structure, but they modified and evolved. And he shares that we need to embrace changes from time to time, especially during this period. And of course, he reminds me that I'm the one that's always reminding him to do things fast, immediately, right? If you join this group, and I love for you to join this group, once you're approved, you'll see Eugene's video on the top. It's 90 seconds as a video. It's a nice pep talk. And the funny thing is, I told Eugene, just do it casually with you, right? You notice that he's dressed professionally, and this is how you should carry yourself as a Prudential life insurance consultant as well. You want to take pride in your work, right? And in case you think that is a hotel backdrop, there's this room, by the way. So I think he's doing pretty well in the business, right? Especially during such times. More importantly, if you're a part of Eugene's agency, I want to let you know that you have such a loving, responsible, and dedicated leader, right? A lot of leaders could do one thing or the other. One thing they could say, it's a crisis, you guys can just try to struggle and hopefully float. Or you could be like Eugene, right? So he sort of followed my advice. He customized it. He did so much thing for his agency, and his agency is at least leaps and bounds ahead and compared to all the other agencies. So Eugene, if you're watching this, or to your team, I want to say that Eugene's team, you're in good hands, and Eugene, you have a lot more to do, right? So our journey has just started. The bonus number 3 that I want to say is that, to summarize this whole entire learning process, we'll be circulating this document. It's a 4-page PDF. It's just a summary of all our keynotes, and now we have Matt to join us. He's waiting very eagerly and patiently, right? We have this 4-page document for me, and this is what my team designed for you, right? So you can use this PDF, you can open it on your tablet, you can print it out even if you're at home, you can paste it on your wall. It guides you, right? So this is a 4-page PDF. I'd like you to especially refer to the last page because I do not have time, but it goes through the do's and don'ts, right? So certain don'ts are so important. Like for example, if you're having a call at home, try not to be unprofessional, right? Having a call, watch your backdrop. You don't want to have a underwear on the side, or you have a rotten chicken head or pig head, right? We live in digital times, guys. So anything that, if they can take a photo and they can put it on social media, it's going to be damaging to your brand, your reputation, and the company's brand, right? So be professional. A quick pro tip, usually I do when I'm training online, especially if I'm doing webinars, interviews, I'll wear professional at the top. Base, if you want to, if you really can't take it, you can wear a shorts. But the key thing is, if you're wearing a shorts, don't stand up. Right? If you stand up, you expose yourself. And if you get caught, that's a huge issue as well, right? So this document will be available in the Facebook group. My PA will be uploading it, and it will also be available through Prudential in itself, and they'll be sending us the documents, right? I want to do a very last quick wrap up, right? I started out by saying that this crisis happened to me. You're anxious, you're nervous, you're fearful, you're unprepared. You're not willing to say, why must I do this? Why do we have to do Zoom calls? But through my experiences, through my student experiences, through my student who was fearful to use Zoom, in 2 days managing to get a case closed using Zoom, I want to show you that there is possibility on the other side. I want to share with you that there is another road to take, right? And the other road to take is to look at this crisis from a reframe point of view. Half number 1, you said this crisis happened to me, is a victimist blame of point of view. You're sort of seeing that you have no control. But what if you ask yourself that and tell yourself that this crisis happened for you, right? And this crisis happened for you in the sense whereby this crisis happened for you to show your true character, to show how much you really care for your clients, to show that you are able to overcome your fear of technology, your fear of not knowing whether this will work, your fear of having your clients reject you over WhatsApp, to try a new platform. This crisis happened for you to really step up. And in my final quote, I always say this, and this was a quote I shared in coaching in Malaysia to 3 mega agencies. And I told them that, in such times, especially when crises are happening, everyone's playing small. Everyone's fearful. Everyone's not wanting to sort of step up. Playing small is a convenient choice, right? But you are in Prudential for a great reason. Matt has started this webinar with 5 core values. One of them is courage. What is courage, right? Courage is knowing that you need to do something, but you are really so afraid. But you still do it. Why? Maybe it's because of your customers who have invested faith in you all these years. Maybe it's because of your family members who are looking at you and say, will daddy, mommy still have money coming in the bank? And I say that the beauty of the insurance business is that you have recurring income. And I'll say the danger of the insurance business is that you also have recurring income. What does that mean? Is that when you have recurring income, you tend to be complacent and comfortable. And this is the last thing, especially to agency leaders, you want your consultants to walk away. It doesn't mean that you have recurring income, you stop activity at this point. Once you stop activity, you lose momentum, and we don't know how long this crisis will take. And by the time it takes and gets better, you're going to pick up momentum. We can be looking at anywhere as short as 2 weeks to even 6 months, right? And from WHO, they're saying that this crisis may last 6 to 9 months even. And are you prepared for your consultants to not have any activity during this period? So my final appeal to you is don't play small, step up. This crisis allowed me to step up to serve 8,000 of you online, virtually. And I would never dream of doing this, if you asked me 10 years ago. Right? Last year, I did my largest in-person crowd with 6,000 in Indonesia. This is my largest so far, 8,000 virtually. If you have value, do me a favor, do your homework, join the group, follow through the learning resources, And last but not least, share with your local training leads on what you've learned. Did you enjoy? Give them feedback, right? We can only do as well as we can do through this series. And if you have feedback, please share that with us. And I love to do this, and I always have to do this. This production is not because of Matt and I or even the regional team. This production is really done possible through our team at MCI. We're in Jalan Besar, and I counted probably there's a dozen of them, close to 10 of us. I know you do this, they can't hear, right? So I want you to spam that group chat and say thank you. Thank you, and the company is MCI, Malaysia, China, India, right? Thank them, send your emojis, thank you, right? Because if they didn't do this dance setup, there's no way I'm connecting with you from the comfort of my living room or my bedroom as well. So thank you, MCI. Spam it still that the servers crash. Okay, maybe not. Okay, because we still have one final segment. All right, and Matt has come back to sort of do a closure. We still have 5 minutes.
Well, Ben, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's why I joined, is to build on the thanks that you've just offered to MCI and to thank you for your work.
Thank you.
This is the first, we said. This is the first in a series. Yep. And in a moment, I want to ask you for some thoughts on how you think it went. Like what the experience was like for you to prepare for and run this. But while you think about that, I'm going to offer some reflections as well.
Please do.
Because I'm standing back here on the other side of these cameras, watching this amazing production that, as Ben said, was made possible by our friends with MCI, but also was made possible because of the hard work of many folks around the region, all of your heads of training, the folks in Hong Kong, at the Prudential Corporation Asia, and many, many more who helped us to pull this off. And of course, Ben, your hard work, preparation, and pulling that together. Some of the reflections that I have as I listen to this from the background is, as Ben noted, we started off the webinar talking about 5 characteristics or 5 values that talk about who we are as an agency and as agents. And I can't help but be struck by how many times each one of those had come up in Ben in the talk that you gave us. You just ended here with 2 of them. You talked about, in essence, how ambitious are we going to be? Are we going to push ourselves and each other to greatness?
Yeah.
How courageous are we going to be? You talked, when you were talking about warming up customers and engaging them, about the curiosity that people need to display. We talked about being nimble and resilient. Did this crisis happen to me or for me? And of course, the empathy that's involved with the warmth. For me, there's a lot of resonance that played out across those. So that was one of my reflections from this, is how much those come through in everything that we're asking our agents to do. How did this feel for you? What were you thinking when you came to Jalan Besar today?
So that's a great question for Matt. I think I have 2 schools of thoughts, right? So one is that if you worked with me, I want to say that I'm never really someone that chased vanity metrics, right? So whether it's 8 of you, 80 of you, 800 of you, 8,000, and regional is thinking of like making it 30,000.
That's right.
I still give my done all, even 8 of you. If 8 of you just sitting in front of me like a cozy coffee chat, I'll still just share the same damn thing with the same intensity. So that's one school of thought, right? But I think the second school of thought, I'll be lying to say I would not be impressed, right? Yesterday, I thought it was just 1,000, and until David was a senior director at Prudential Regional, he told me, Ben, it's not just 1,000, it's 8,000, right? Yeah. So that's why I started out with 8,000 times 90 minutes, that's 720,000 minutes of the world's time. So I really make sure that I want to make sure that everything is watertight as much as possible. There's a Facebook group, there's learning resources, there's motivation from Eugene from Malaysia. That's the first video that I love for you to watch. And as you watch it, get the inspiration. I really want to make this work for you, right? Because this crisis also happened for me, right? I could be a trainer that laments and say, this crisis means that I'm out of business. I will not have much activity, right? But it was because Prudential invested this faith in me and allowed me to reach out and serve you all at a higher level. So I think I'm equally, 1, contented, but 2, also excited at how we're going to sort of shape this whole learning opportunity together with everyone.
Likewise, me too. And I have to confess that I was a bit nervous also yesterday in preparation.
I know, right?
I was up late, tossing and turning, thinking about how this would all go and what I would share with our people. So we want to, for me, one of the big things that I wanted to give was to make sure that this was useful to you all.
Yeah.
That what we're bringing to you is the start of a series of things that help you be more comfortable, confident, and able to rise to the challenges. And so that kept me up until after midnight last night worrying about that.
So pretty much we turn in at the same time, right?
Same time.
Post midnight.
But also, I would say, Ben, like you, I'm excited about
Yeah.
what's to come and how much opportunity that we've got
Yeah.
with PRUExpert in the coming weeks. Speaking of that, next week we will do this again.
I believe we will. Yes.
On Friday.
Yep.
The scheduling will be
Yep.
coming out.
Yep.
What is our ask of the audience today? What do we want them to do between now and next week?
Right. If there's any asks or any sort of requests or any sort of like again, like anything that I'd love for you to do or get started is don't think too much, right? Again, warm up, open up, set up. I make it as simple as possible for you, right? So the only way to know is to do, right? So if you're just learning, if you're just watching people go ahead, and then you're wondering why are you stuck at a warm-up phase and you're sort of having a bit of fear going to the next phase, it's not going to help you, right? And let yourself know that as a salesperson, you're going to eat no's you're going to eat rejections as breakfast, right? And that's one way to look at it from a healthy point of view, right? And rejections doesn't mean anything. Rejections mean that sometimes they're rejecting your idea, they're rejecting the timing, they're rejecting this moment, right? It doesn't always revolve around you. But the key thing here is between now to next week, you can only benefit from next session if you started out with this session. My belief is that if you're able to hop on at least a minimum of 3 online consults with clients between now till next Friday, that would already set you far ahead. Because why? You need to be comfortable setting up the platform. You need to be comfortable even using like iPad to draw out like a financial presentation, a money tree, a money goose. You need to be able to be comfortable with the new medium, the new process, the new platform. And this doesn't come automatically overnight. So you got to give yourself the opportunities to make mistakes. And again, why with current prospects, they are more willing to see you make small mistakes because they know you, they love you, they trust you, and they know that, outside of this crisis, you are very professional and you are also human. Once you're comfortable and master that, the next few weeks, we're going to cold prospecting, right? Cold prospecting is how to use social to reach out to people who may not know you. And again, the same point is, do you want to make mistakes with them? Because these people are unlikely going to give you 1 or 2 more chances. Your current prospects more likely to, right? So to summarize, 1, do the work. 2, leaders, please take care of your consultants. Consultants, please feed it back to your leaders. And the third thing is, if you have any specific requests, filter that up to the local training heads, and the training heads can then share that with regional for us to deliver it, for us to design something that's more worthwhile.
Great point. So we do want them to do some work in the next week.
For sure, right? At Prudential, we do, right? So that's our motto as well.
And as we go through the series of these webinars, each one will become more and more interactive as we go. So next week, we will likely be using the raise your hand functionality to hear from some of you on how these tasks that Ben asked you to undertake will go. As we come to close, speaking of being interactive, this is a photo that I received shortly after I left the stage and left Ben to the training. This is from one of our agency leaders here in Singapore, who said that she was so glad to see Prudential doing this work and to see us being nimble ourselves in terms of how we bring this training and the goodness to our people. And this is a photo taken from outside of her bathroom here in Singapore. It's a little bird's nest. And just a symbol, we both thought as we were chatting back and forth, a symbol of the hope that we've all mentioned here. I did, Ben did as well, for what's to come, whether this is 6 weeks or 6 months. We're going to go through this together. This is a shared human experience that's happening to everybody around the world. And so let us be guided by our better angels as we go through this. And we learn together, and we come out on the other side stronger together. And so that's it. Thank you again, Ben.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks for hosting this and making this session possible as well.
And we'll see you next week.
Sure.
And we'll see you all next week. Thanks for joining us.
Do your work.
Yes, do the homework.
You'll share the same destination. You'll work together as one. space, there's only one vision. To be the number one. We all have the right combination. Care and quality, there's no compromise. Doing the very best will be our mission. It's something that we need to realize. It's something very special in our eyes. We are special. Our values mean a lot. We are the people who give it all we got. With a sunny disposition, we can overcome the loss. Yes, we have a valid reason to believe. We are number one. Take one more step. Jump excellent. We'll do whatever it takes to touch the sky. And we'll help each other reach our aspirations. We know that we can do it if we strive. We are potential. Our values mean a lot. We are the people who give it all we got. With a sunny disposition,